Oh, let's do a Politifact one. So that was one fact from a fact check from, I think it was called factcheck.org. Let's do another one here, because there's no end to the lies, the spin, and the dishonesty. This one relates to increase in deaths, because there's a statistic that I saw that I said, just because it confirms what I might be inclined to believe does not mean I'm going to run with it and believe it. And sometimes when they come from certain sources, I'm immediately skeptical, rightly or wrongly. Like there are news outlets, or there are information sources on what I would call the similar ideological perspective that I might be aligned with now, that I still won't believe, because they have unfortunately been guilty of misinformation in the past. Not mentioning any names, I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but it's not Rebel News, and it's not True North, and it's Post Millennial, I think, had one at one point, but it's not those. It's smaller individuals who I don't want to put on blast, but I still see information from them from time to time. Thank goodness PolitiFact found another explanation to a fact that was initially denied as being true in the first place. If anybody can find me the sources that say no, the 40% increase of all deaths in insurance was not true. If anybody can find that for me, because I know that I saw it, I just can't find it now. Please tag me, send it to me. I'd love to have it for my Twitter diary. But no, the Fauci isn't responsible for an increase in deaths. There's a good explanation here, by the way, which might, in fact, even in my mind, confirm this fact, this alleged fact. But let's just go to the fact check. The Fauci caused a 40% increase in deaths identified by a life insurance company. How many elements to this question, by the way? We're going to look at this like a lawyer asking a question in a deposition. How many elements are this? You have X caused. That's one element. A 40% increase. That's a second element, because if it's 20%, you can say fake. If it's 35%, you can say fake. So blank caused a certain specific number in deaths identified by a life insurance company. So you have three separate elements here. Any one of which, if it turns out to be true, if it wasn't a life insurance company, but it was, I don't know, let me just think of like an underwriting agency. They might not be a life insurance company, but they might be the ones who determine premiums. It could be a denied statement. If it's 38%, it could be a denied statement. If the increase is in fact accurate and it's confirmed by a life insurance agency, well, you know darn well they're going to deny it anyhow, because you have to draw the correlation to the cause that's indicated in the header. If your time is short, I take my time like I take me, short. One America CEO Scott Davidson said life insurance data indicates, this is from PolitiFact, people, this is not me. This is from PolitiFact. This is not even from One America. This is from PolitiFact. He said that indicates that death rates among working age people, and I believe that's 16 to 40 or 20 to 60. I don't know. It's not old people. It's working age. They'll tell us what the age is somewhere in here. Up 40% compared to pre-pandemic rates. Okay. Social media users have suggested that the Fauci, rather than the illness itself, are responsible for the increase in deaths. Working age people. Don't forget that. This fact check is suggesting that the Rona itself is the cause of the deaths. They're suggesting it here in a demographic which statistically we know has, qualify it yourself, but we know what the statistical rate of death or risk of death is among working age people. We know where the risk goes up 1,000-fold. That's not in working age people by the stats and by the data itself. But this is what they're saying here. So they're saying some social media users, those anti-Vs, those conspiracy Ts. I love this. I'm doing this actually just for fun, by the way. It's not actually. They're saying that some conspiracy theorists, social media users, the anti-vaxxers, they're suggesting it's from the Fauci juice, not from the virus itself, in working age people. Research indicates that COVID-19 is likely responsible for the increase. That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, we know the stats. We have 2+ years of stats. We know what it is. You can go run working age COVID deaths. You can go look it up yourself. I'm not even going to do it here. But let's just see here. Let's just see where they confirm the fact. What's driving up the death rate? Oh, I love this. Politifact and other fact-checking organizations have repeatedly found that there's no basis for the claim. We have not investigated ourselves and found no basis for the claim. Let's just see. So that they're not denying the data. I want to get to the good stuff here because I don't want to read. Lancashire noted that because COVID-19 is a leading cause of death for Americans of all ages, a leading cause of death for Americans of all ages. Try to break that down. The illness would be a factor in increase in deaths. Davidson pulled his 40% increase from third quarter data, which includes July through September, and therefore aligns with a second spike in deaths the CDC identified. Yeah, the second spike. In what age bracket? I'm going to predict that second spike in deaths was not in working aged individuals. I'm going to make that guess. If I'm wrong, people, let me know. Our ruling. Post suggests 40% increase in deaths identified by a life insurance company was from the Fauci rather from the virus. Research indicates that the Rona is likely responsible for the increase, both directly and indirectly. Would indirectly, by the way, include the government response? These bad people. These are very bad people who do this. This now, throwing in the word indirectly, I would say that this is a correct conclusion. Research indicates that COVID-19 is likely responsible for the increase, both directly and indirectly. You know why it's true? Because these liars and dishonest people at PolitiFact will say government response that drove up unemployment, that drove up self-harm, that drove up drinking, that drove up the inability to get diagnosed with diseases, that's indirect COVID. I guarantee you they would make that argument. That's how dishonest they are. And by the way, if that's the argument, they're right. There is no evidence to suggest the V's are to blame. Okay. There's no evidence. Again, I don't know. There's no evidence for that. Although, by the way, even if they were to be to blame, I suspect they would qualify that as indirectly COVID. We rate this claim false. No evidence, they rate it false. That's how PolitiFact, these liars, work. No evidence would mean inconclusive. To say something is false, you have to have evidence to show that it's false. In fact, the bulk of the evidence here supports that it's true. But I wouldn't say it's true. I would just say unsubstantiated. It cannot be determined. There's no evidence to suggest this. There's no evidence. There is an absence of evidence. Therefore, it's false. Oh, but it's the Rona, because both directly, which we know to be probably statistically inaccurate, and indirectly, which we don't even know what that means. Outright liars. Sorry. There's no other way. There is no other way to qualify that. That is, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, and it's a little confession through projection, because I still see things through the eyes of a lawyer who knows that lawyers use and abuse of language and wordsmithing specifically for these types of reasonings. And I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be guilty of it myself. I know that when I drafted contracts, I would be meticulous in my wording so that it would cover everything and anything, so that it would protect my client, not so that I could weasel out and say, oh, it's just directly or indirectly. Everything on earth is indirectly related. Anyways, that's it. It's type 2 diabetes, autoimmune, allergies, memory loss, all parasite symptoms. Medical industry stopped treating them in the 80s and wiped the medical literature. The problem didn't go away. It became profitable. I cannot confirm or deny any of this, Gerald Nadeau, but I do thank you for the chat. Kyle Cowden said, Nietzsche said, I don't believe in God because I don't want to believe in God. That's the fallacy in expecting justice in a fallen world. It is inevitable. You might not realize justice here. Okay, look, I'm going to have to reread that afterwards. I read Nietzsche, didn't understand a lot of it, but I was young at the time. It is inevitable. You might not realize justice here. Okay, now I understood how that last line is meant. Or justice is just living well. Justice is its own reward. Goodness is its own reward. It's very philosophical. One day we'll have a philosophical musing of philosophies, but no evidence is false, people. Yeah. No evidence, by the way, and we haven't looked. There's no evidence Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's misdealings, according to John J. Harwood, former journalist, now disguised spokesperson of the White House. Not even a spokesperson, spin master. Because you still expect honesty from a spokesperson, but a paid spin master is what he has. Words matter. If you think they are incompetent, you may be mistaken. They are taking actions that cause deaths without being liable to or prove. They are certainly they are establishing policy that seems to be resulting in an increased death in the year after the policy and while the policy is still ongoing. But that's you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, I guess, right? In order to protect grandma, we have to enact policy that results in an 83% increase in grandchild. Lost bullets. Viva got accepted to law school this morning in Saskatchewan. Can't decide between constitutional law or criminal law. First of all, congratulations. I do remember the day I got into my first university of law, my first university for law, how ecstatic I was, because I remembered at the very least I got into one. I'm going to law school. I don't know why I was so neurotic, because I did relatively well at McGill honors philosophy, but once you get the first insurance school and I don't know, Saskatchewan I think is a good school. U of S. Anyways, once you get into one, you're golden. So congratulations. You're lucky. You don't have to decide what you want to practice yet, and nor should you. Lost bullets. I say this with love and respect. You know nothing of the law right now. You know nothing of what you're going to want to practice as a lawyer. You actually need to practice it before you can even determine what field you want to be in. Thinking that anyone in law school first year saying, I want to go into constitutional law, or I want to go into criminal law, or I want to go into family law. You need to see the practice. It's like saying, it's sort of like saying what lake you want to swim in before you know the temperature. Or I'm good to swim in a cold lake without ever having dipped your toes in to see how blisteringly cold, breathtakingly cold it is. But congratulations and enjoy the journey. It's a good one. It's a good one, even if you end up not practicing, doing live streams in your car or your basement. It's a good journey, and the practice of law is good experience to have. A law degree is good experience to have, even if you never practice. Hold on, I just saw something here that I want to see. Curly girl method. Viva, you should look into trying the curly girl method. I have hair oil upstairs, which I'm going to have to reapply after I exercise today. So that's it. That's the fake fact checkers. It never ends. It never ends because they are paid liars. You don't need to call yourself a fact checker in order to fact check. And I dare say the second you do call yourself a fact checker, and I'm saying this even for myself, it's suspect. Research and just look into it, and you can come to your own conclusions, and other people will as well. But no evidence, therefore false. You're not a fact checker, Politifact. You're liars. You're spin masters, and I dare say you are ideologically driven spin masters. Last one. Okay. Okay, let me see this. What is not said? Okay, interesting. Not reading it, people, because I don't want to be accused of having promoted medical advice. Thank you. This is the thing. Like every morning I get up and I just don't know if there's going to be what to talk about without getting repetitive. But the dishonesty out there will always give original content to go over and just make sure everybody understands. Half of this is reading comprehension, and half of this is due diligence. And it can be trained. And once you acquire the skill, it's like riding a bike. You will never read a headline the same way again. You will never read an article the same way again, because you'll see how it's manipulated. You'll see how it's. What was the one that just came out? Oh, geez, it said the headline. Oh, it was a study. You know what? Let me get to this one. This is a fun one. It was a study that Nate Brody shared, and I'm not. This is no shade on Nate. I love Nate, and there's no but. He posted a study, which purportedly undermined the efficacy of one of the alternative. One of the taboo treatments to the Rona,